Doom Eternal, released March of 2020. Available on all modern platforms. Retailing for $39.99. Doom Eternal is the sequel to Doom 2016. It is, however, not a direct sequel. In the world of Doom, slightly more than a decade has passed. And in that time, Earth has apparently been invaded by Hell, and evidently Hell was very successful in its invasion. But while this was going on, the Doomslayer got himself a spaceship, and has taken it upon himself to cleanse the Earth of Hell's forces. And apparently his plan for cleansing is one demon at a time. And the basic level structure is thus. You teleport down somewhere to do something. The game will explain what you're there to do, but what you're actually there to do does not matter, as once the level starts, you will go through wiping out hordes upon hordes of demons. And the actual wiping out of demons is quite similar to Doom 2016, except ammo is even more scarce, thus forcing you to use every weapon in your inventory, and forcing you to become very familiar with using the chainsaw to restore your ammo. And unfortunately, your chainsaw doesn't work on every demon, so you mostly only get to chainsaw the things that aren't actually threats. Unless you've already done a lot of damage to one of the bigger things that actually are threats anyway. But this does make combat feel intense and quite frantic, and you never want to stand still. And they've added several new toys to your combat inventory. You have a flamethrower, and enemies that are on fire drop armor, which is nice. You have grenades, both of the frag and ice variety, and thankfully they do not share a timer. Also, after doing a couple of glory kills, your melee attack gets powered up, which is nice for when you're in a tight situation. All of these are great additions. But they are additions, and remembering that you have them at first is rather difficult. As for basically the first half of the game, I'd get through combat encounters and think, oh, I should have used this, this, and this. But by the time I thought about it, it was too late. And sure, there's going to be another combat encounter shortly, but there's another addition to this game that wasn't quite as good as what was added to combat. Between the excellent combat encounters, you're going to have to do a lot of first-person platforming. First-person platforming is always terrible. And what's on offer here is absolutely not an exception. And sometimes there's a little break in the platforming, and you might think, okay, I got through half of this. This is a little break, hopefully this was a checkpoint, only to start on the next bit of platforming, fail, and realize you have to go all the way back to the start of this whole section. And if you're interested in getting all the collectibles in the game, action figures, albums, upgrade items, oh my! Frequently these items will be hidden behind elaborate platforming sections, which made me give up on collecting them after a certain point. Also dotted around levels are two kinds of combat challenges. One kind gives you a rather strict time limit to deal with a small group of demons that spawn in. If you fail, you don't get anything you used during the fight back. Then there is a second kind where you find a key and unlock a combat encounter. These don't have a time limit, but they are very intense encounters. They teleport you to an area that has armor and ammo and everything in it, along with all the demons you need to face. And if you fail and need to try again, everything's restocked in that little area, so these aren't as punishing as the time limit ones, by and large. Both types of these reward you with weapon points. Weapon points are spent to upgrade your weapons once you have found a mod for your weapon. And once you fully upgrade one of your mods, you unlock a challenge. Weapon mods are one of the many things scattered around levels. Each weapon has two different mods, and when you find a mod, you can select what weapon to use it on, and which of that weapon's two mods you get. And there is definitely a case to be made for each of the mods that is available. But you do really need to reflect on your personal gameplay style to decide which mods you're gonna get first. For example, the shotgun can either have a fully automatic mode, or it can launch sticky grenades. Now, a fully automatic mode for a shotgun does sound very powerful, and it is. But for my gameplay style, I find those sticky grenades to be infinitely more useful to me, as many of the bigger demons have weak spots, and a sticky grenade on a weak spot makes it go away. There is definitely a story happening in Doom Eternal. However, as you're playing it, it feels as if you're missing huge chunks of information. For example, the Doomslayer needs to take out 3 Hell Priests. The Hell Priests are under the impression they're immortal, and Doomslayer has some kind of disc that makes them not immortal. What that disc actually is, or where it came from, is not explained. At one point, you encounter a gentleman apparently living in exile, known as the Betrayer. Who exactly did he betray? And who put him into exile? The game doesn't say, and there are bits of lore scattered about here and there, but even reading those doesn't really answer these questions. I'm assuming there's some other media that actually answers these questions, but if it's not in the game, I am not going to find it. But I guess not answering these questions does sort of work for being the Doomslayer, as clearly his only goal is to wipe out more demons. So anyone and anything he needs to interact with is clearly just in service of his goal of wiping out demons. So is Doom Eternal worth your time and money? Well, if you're looking to do all kinds of terrible things to demons, yes. This game builds upon what Doom 2016 did. It takes that game to further extremes, and in new directions in some ways. Not all of the directions necessarily work, like the platforming discussed earlier, but other than that, everything else on offer here is truly amazing. And not just from a gameplay standpoint. There are things that are on display here clearly just to get a reaction from the audience. Like when you need to go and use the BFG 10,000 to punch a hole in a planet. It's just so ridiculous and over the top. And powering this thing is apparently just the handheld version of the BFG. There also is some replay value on offer here. I could certainly see someone going through using particular weapons and weapon mods, and then going through again, but deciding to use the exact opposite of what they used the last time. As all weapons in this game are viable, but some of them do require different strategies if you're going to use them effectively. So yes, I do absolutely recommend Doom Eternal. I think it may be the weakest of this current incarnation of Doom, as it is sandwiched between Doom 2016 and Doom the Dark Ages, but it's still a worthwhile experience and very much worth its $40 price tag. And really, even as the weakest of this particular trilogy, it still puts it far beyond most other games in this genre. If it wasn't for the platforming, I might actually call this one the strongest. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.